Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are right now. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. So both ISC and InfoComm feel like distant memories, but those industry gatherings in Barcelona and Las Vegas were notable for many technological advances. The STAGETEC booth stood out, however. In addition to presenting the Avatus audio console of the future with its 4 user interfaces, Nexus IP link and TrueMatch technology, the Berlin-based brand launched STAGENET. Conceptualized to promote reliable, simplified and flexible AV over IP signal management, STAGENET focuses on the operator and in doing so, sets a new standard for the IP user experience. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Stefan Ledergerber. Having accumulated 2 decades of industry experience as a technical executive and RE director at both Studer and Lavo, Stefan decided to establish Simplexity and consult for manufacturers who required upgraded user interface designs. Stefan was part of a team at Swiss Television's all-IP project, Matrox, where he gained a lot of practical experience with IP-related topics. The out-of-the-box thinker triggered the STAGENET project in 2020, following a meeting with STAGETEC MD, Wolfgang Salzbrenner. Guten Tag, Stefan.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. We couldn't do it without you. In addition to Simplexity, STAGENET combines products and technologies from Arista networks, Matrox, Emerging Technologies, and STAGETEC. Joining Stefan today, Albert Faust is a media technology expert who is currently working as a technology lead at Arista Networks. Launched in 2008, Arista Networks pioneers and delivers software-driven cloud networking solutions for large data storage, campuses, and computer environments. Albert has over 30 years of experience in broadcast technology, and he had an award-winning career in broadcast engineering before shifting to the manufacturing side of the industry in 2013. Good morning, Albert. Good morning, Richard. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Representing the Canadian market leader in designing software and hardware solutions for Pro AV/IT, video and image machine vision applications, Donald Sivewright is the sales director for Matrox Video. For over 45 years, the Canadian brand has established itself as a global leader in hardware and software solutions for broadcast, AV, and machine vision applications. Donald manages all the ME sales, marketing, technical support, and order processing. Hello, Donald.
Good morning, everyone.
Good to see you. Based in Geneva, Maurice Engler is a products and project manager at Emerging Technologies. For over 30 years, Emerging Technologies has established itself as a renowned brand of high-resolution digital audio recording and editing systems, multi-speaker playout systems, networkable audio converters, and a cross-platform and cross-vendor audio network manager. With a dedicated user base in film, music, television, mastering and performance industries, Maurice has been an integral part of the Swiss machinery for 21 years to date, in which he has provided invaluable audio experience. Bonjour, Maurice.
Bonjour, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Comment allez-vous?
Très bien, et vous? Merci.
For almost 30 years as well, STAGETEC has earned a global admiration and respect as a pioneer of innovative professional audio technology for broadcast theatre and AV installations. Today, the Berlin-based brand provides individual IP signal management solutions for audio and video, interfaces, and mixing console systems. Representing STAGETEC today, product specialist Rehman Leigh brings extensive experience from Australian IP networking and media product applications within the broadcast, transport, and infrastructure sectors. Good day, Rehman.
Good day, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming back from the Sydney suburbs. I hope it's a better time of day for you today.
Today it's a lot better.
The 5 panelists, I've introduced them, will be eager to answer your questions on this groundbreaking technology very shortly. However, before we commence the webinar, let's quickly revisit the fundamentals of STAGENET, courtesy of the following short video.
Today we're going to tell you the story of a new revolutionary solution for IP signal management. It's called STAGENET, and its story is about people like you. The way media is produced is changing rapidly. Today, there's really no way around IP signal management for audio and video. The fact is, audio and video over IP is the future for every kind of event and media production. So what's the challenge exactly? We need a reliable technical solution that we can trust 100%. A system that works easily during setup and operation, and that's flexible enough even for last-minute changes. A solution that is future-proof and based on open standards, which puts you, the user, in the center so that you can use your time for an even better production. We've listened carefully and have met many people who share our conviction. Audio and video over IP must finally become intuitive and reliable, yet be completely flexible. Based on this conviction, 5 industry leaders teamed up together to develop STAGENET. Our system is super easy to use via an intuitive web interface. It configures both the end devices and the switches automatically, monitors their status, and displays possible sources of error in a clear and understandable way. Thanks to STAGENET, you don't have to be a network engineer to work easily with IP signals. This idea has excited everyone involved so much that we're now growing into a real community. Be a part of it and discover what STAGENET can do for you and your individual application needs. STAGENET welcomes you all.
So there you have it. We are going to commence with several pre-prepared questions, but during the next 45 minutes, I welcome our audience to submit questions to any of our panelists by sending a message in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We will aim to answer as many questions as possible, but please don't be disheartened if we cannot read them all out over this time span. Should you wish to ask a question, our panelists will either address this live in the webinar or they will reply in the chat window. So let's begin. I'll throw these questions out to the panel, but for some of these, I will specifically ask one or more of the individuals. And we're going to begin with a question here, I believe for Rehman in Australia, if that's okay, Rehman. The question is, as the industry already has a number of control software available, what's so special about STAGENET? And obviously, Stefan, if you could interact at the end of that, that'd be great. So please, Rehman, can you enlighten me?
Easy. So essentially what we've noticed is that a lot of these existing systems require quite a considerable amount of preparation and customization. And so this sort of puts the user a little bit in the dark. Whilst it meets specifications, it becomes rather complex and the user doesn't utilize the system to its full capacity. So we created STAGENET to be an out-of-the-box solution, which sort of draws from modern software features that we use today, making its UI rather intuitive and allows our users to easily understand their system and focus on workflow and getting things done correctly.
Thanks, Rehman. That's a pretty good overview. Rehman, that's good. Stefan, can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. You know, I think today, as Raman just said, basically a lot of these systems are what I call engineered systems. So people plan it, people actually get a system integrator in, doing all the thinking. He needs to have expert knowledge on that. And then he comes in, he does exactly what the customer wants. He puts those buttons exactly where he wants them to be in the color he wants. And then he leaves the building. And after that, there's a tendency that these systems are actually quite static because no one wants to touch it because it works the way it is. And people are kind of shying away from it because, well, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. And there is, we believe there is a problem with this because ultimately IP networks are exactly about flexibility. It's about wandering around, plugging your device in, using it wherever you want, adding devices, all this kind of stuff. It's about the dynamic of a setup, which actually the underlying technology of IP gives us. So we should use it. And right now we see a lot of systems out there which are actually installed and never touched because whatever reason, too complicated, not enough expertise, maybe a bit of as I said, shying away from it because it's not quite sure how to make it work or how to adjust it. It is complex underneath. So there is a job to do to actually make that usable. And actually, you know, I heard someone saying, today, it's not possible to rent a piece of IP 2110 equipment for a weekend and return it Monday because the time and the effort it takes to set it up is just more expensive than actually the rent. So StageNet wants to change that. And actually, I mean, Albert, you maybe you want to elaborate on that, where you are and what this is about, and just briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working at an industry event right now where everyone's hooking their stuff up and making sure all the standards work together. But it takes so much effort to make this stuff all talk and control, different manufacturers, different stuff. And this is where we're missing. And this is where sort of, you know, it has to come together, that you can use stuff quickly, that you can change stuff quickly, and you don't have to have 4 people run in to quickly configure all the different components.
Thank you for that, Albert. I'm going to stay with you in a second, but just to remind our audience, please feel free to use the Q&A box and send us a question in, and our panel will be very happy to answer those questions that are coming in right now. But Albert, stay with you. An orchestrator. First of all, I need you to explain that. I'm a little bit not so savvy. Someone's asked, could StageNet be called an orchestrator? So it's a 2-part question, please.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, it's certainly a term used by companies for marketing. Hey, we're an orchestrator. But what does it really mean? I mean, orchestration in the IT world is where, you know, services can be deployed without having to call 15 different people. You know, you don't have to call the network guy. You don't have to call the security guy. You don't have to call the server guy. You know, it orchestrates and delivers services. And that's the same thing that we're doing here within broadcast, is that we need the system that allows us to plug cameras in, plug monitors in, plug microphones in, plug mixers in, and they're recognized for what they can do. The paths and the signals are created to what, you know, where they need to be, so that a user can sit down and do his job. And that's what StageNet here is. It's an orchestration system for broadcast. And that's the distinction between control and orchestration. You know, there's lots of control systems out there, but they require a considerable amount of setup time, and we need that flexibility. And that's what the orchestration level of StageNet can do.
That really does help the user with self-configuration. Stefan, can I bring you into the mix here again, over in Switzerland? I've got a question that's come in saying, what infrastructure do I need to run the StageNet software?
The infrastructure is actually quite flexible. I mean, ultimately what we need is a decent PC to run the control software on, and that includes a web server in there. So basically that will then allow you to connect your mobile devices, your tablets and stuff like that onto your Wi-Fi. So as such, for the control side, we can start pretty small, but then again, the software, which is actually, it's kind of what you see as a website, is only the tip of an iceberg. Under the hood, there's quite a lot of stuff going on, and we use the software is being developed from the ground up. So there is no history behind this. It's basically just knowledge of people doing it, which there is a history behind that, of course. They're not newbies in this industry, but they have really started every line of code from scratch, and they're using modern architectures, modern technologies, out there, which you don't need to reinvent because they are there and working. One of them is called Docker. So you can actually, modularize the whole software is highly modular. We have lots of Docker containers running. They can run on one machine, but actually using another layer called Kubernetes, we are actually able to span across servers. If you run out of CPU power because your system grows too big, we can actually scale the whole thing almost unlimited. So obviously we will know once we build such a huge system, but we are very confident that we are prepared for it. So that's what you need. Now, having said all that, we're gonna deploy the software as an image. So it's pretty easy to install it somewhere as a virtual machine, it's called. So virtualized PC basically. But to start with, we're probably gonna start shipping a hardware server. So just to keep things easy at the beginning, because obviously also we have to learn and get into the processes of shipping stuff. So such systems. So we start with shipping your box, a server, which you can connect and go online. But after that, we will go more into sending you pieces of images you can install yourself.
So it's flexible and you can build it up as you grow. A live question has just come in, which I'm going to ask and throw it out to the panel. It's probably going to be more applicable to yourself, Stefan. And please, anyone who's watching, please send in more questions. This is what we're here for this time of day. So, Stefan, or anyone else, when will we be able to get our hands on a demo version of STAGENET? Obviously, eager. We will have demo tools, and when will we have the demo tools to be able to demonstrate STAGENET to our customers?
Maybe actually I can jump in on this one.
Thank you, Rehman.
Yeah, look, I think we're happy to do demonstrations for everybody. So it's as simple as going onto STAGENET and getting in touch with our sales support team. We're happy to present demos and go as far as we need to. As for our distributors, they all have a live demo system, so they log on to a software and they can demonstrate it for everybody as well.
Thank you for explaining that. We'll be talking more about demos at IBC later on in this discussion, and where anyone interested in the technology can get hands-on with it shortly. We're coming to the end of the summer doldrums in the Northern Hemisphere, not down under, so it's that time of year again when we can start getting out and about and seeing things. Going back to what you were saying, Stefan, about unlimited, let me expand on that. One of the questions that's just come in is, what is the maximum size of a STAGENET installation?
Well, I can just, as I mentioned, it's pretty scalable. So I'm tempted to say it's unlimited. But of course, that's a bit exaggerating. So, but honestly, we don't see a scalability issue. We take care of that very well already now in the first, internal software versions. We always keep an eye on CPU power and stuff like that, and see that we are not putting stuff in, which could limit the size of our installations. So I think ultimately we will have obviously switches with a certain limited on their ports, on the interfaces, but we will have more switches connecting together and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be worried about the size. And also I should mention that what we do is actually a layer 3 system. So we are actually that's for the IP experts amongst us. That's basically, we are crossing subnets. That's what I want to say. We are ready to do all that. So we are using all the bells and whistles of IT, the way they are meant to be, the way they are invented for, and the way they are proving themselves for years and years in the internet to work. So we use all these tools, and so therefore layer 3 and all this stuff I mentioned before with the software, I don't see a real limit to the size of a system.
Thank you. It sounds as though we are unlimited in where we can go with this, but obviously time will tell as we expand. The live questions keep coming in, which is great. Keep the questions coming in during the course of this webinar. Live question open to the panel now. Which machine should we access in the system to open the STAGENET web app? Anybody, any takers for that?
Well, I guess we have some distributors here, and I think they should get in contact with Rehman, and then we're going to sort this out. Obviously, the demo systems are not meant for public use, and therefore, Rehman is your contact point, and he will help you.
Sorry to our other panelists. We're going through a tennis exchange between Switzerland and Australia at the moment, because it's going to go back to Rehman, this next question. So I think we're 30 all at the moment in this Australian Open Series. What GUI looks nice and easy? Rehman, which GUI looks nice and easy, and what kind of effort do I have to spend to set it up in this way?
Well, mate, it's pretty much everything is fully automated, so there's no effort on the user's side. So we created it to be fully automated, and the only exception to this is creating meaningful labels and organizing IOs into groups. So by organizing groups and assigning labels, you can sort of better define your case study, and this takes away the complexity from all the work. And by doing this, you focus more on your workflow and spend less time learning the system and more practical on workflow.
We've got another live question coming. This is more audio centric. So Stefan's neighbor in Switzerland, Maurice. Maurice, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Yes.
I'm going to throw a question at you. I think you're the right man for this, but tell me if I'm wrong. A live question's just come in. Could you do a small club of a setup? Maybe a venue with one band in a club with a stage of 24 mics, a PA, and monitoring. Additionally, a web stream should send out. I have all the stuff now if I make it work.
Well, first of all, it depends how this will. I mean, what we have today, we are partners, as you can see. There's Arista, Matrox, STAGETEC, and merging. As long as it stays within those, Matrox, sorry, I forgot. As long as it stays within those product range, all this will work together with STAGENET. Now, perhaps Stefan can elaborate later on that, but the idea is, of course, perhaps to grow the community also with other brands. But as long as this is together, so then things would work together within the STAGENET environment. And again, as it was said before, you then need the specific server or later on to download the disk image to install it on a PC or a virtual PC to make things all together, work together on the STAGENET GUI to be able to interconnect the different streams, for example, from the mic pre to the console, for example. Let's take this example. You have some microphones connected to a merging happy device, an audio device, a converter and mic pre inside, and you want to connect it to a STAGETEC console. So then you would see on the GUI the two devices, and you will be able to connect from one to the other. I should mention also that what is important is that on the GUI, it simply says that the status of those devices are healthy. For example, that they are on the same PTP, that they can work together, or otherwise they would be grayed out. So this gives a very interesting feedback, first and foremost, about this connection. And then obviously you can connect the streams from the happy going out into the console to be able to have the audio streams accessible to the console, and so on to the next device if you want to. So yes, this would work. Now, I would recommend the best, if you happen to come to IBC, to the person who asked the question, to come and visit the STAGENET booth to have a real demonstration, because there the effectiveness of those devices are on display. And this is all the beauty about it.
Merci, Maurice. Stefan.
I can add one thing onto that, just to clarify. STAGENET takes care of signal management. So that example which was asked by the live stream and stuff like that, what we would not take care of up until, foreseeable future is kind of doing a live stream or something. That would be kind of something else which is not in focus. We make sure that we basically make everything from A to Z in terms of what you used to do with cables before, right? Basically, that's actually what STAGENET takes care of. So yeah, as Maurice elaborated, so that's the focus we are having.
Thank you, Stefan. I'm going to shift the emphasis now over to Albert at Arista, because there's an Arista-based live question that's just come in. And the question is, do we have to use Arista switch for small to medium-sized applications?
Well, I mean, Arista has launched 12 and 18 port switches for these small applications, the 710P series, that allows to fit in these models. If you're looking for something small that has PTP, that has, you know, the tools that STAGENET can use to configure and deploy the switches. So, you know, we can fit that model, and I'm sure Stefan can talk about, you know, those for other products that come along, but definitely Arista can meet the model from small to large to campus size situations.
Okay, thank you for that. But say if they want to put a different switch in, that wouldn't work at the moment until the community's grown.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, this is not as much as we love Arista to be part of this, and we love their products. It's not an exclusive, and it's not an exclusive to any of the vendors on this round here. So we will grow, and we will basically, you know, accept other products as well, and that will be happening based on business case decisions. You know, so if someone has a large project and he has you know, some products which should be supported, then obviously we should look at that. Now, having said that, we have to talk to those vendors to really tightly integrate the whole thing. Otherwise, just to have some IP flows back and forth, that's not enough for a STAGENET user experience.
For anyone watching today, just to remind the audience, we did have a webinar yesterday, which was a different time of day, and we asked different questions coming in. And please keep your questions coming, because they're quite varied questions this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're watching from. And the question that's just come in, which is probably reassuring that the chaps here have been doing the job well for the last 4 months, is please could you elaborate on the price model? So I think the technical details have sunk in, and now people ask about the pricing. Stefan, could you please elaborate on the price model?
Yeah, I mean, it's otherwise, yeah, I mean, actually, Rehman could be the guy. You know, STAGETEC is selling this, so maybe that's a good question for Rehman.
So we do a license-based model per equipment. So essentially, it's the cheaper the device, the cheaper the cost of STAGENET. But then obviously, if the device is more expensive or the larger the system, then the more expensive the system gets. So it's approximately about 10% of that cost, and then we do have some yearly maintenance fees on top of this.
Thanks, Rehman. Another live question that's just come in. Is STAGETEC running on cluster Windows Server Basida or as like a HP server?
Yeah, well, you could. Basically, it doesn't have to be Windows at all. So it's, you know, it's good. What's the well, people call it orchestration layer as well. It's what we use is Kubernetes. Which builds up clusters by itself. So Kubernetes is basically gonna orchestrate or handle those what they call Docker containers running on multiple machines. So basically, any standard server will be able to get that running.
I'm going to bring Donald into the mix, if I may, for this next question, because Donald got up nice and early like myself, I believe. I hope he didn't get wet like I did.
So I haven't stepped outside my door yet.
You've been excited all night since the last webinar. You've been chomping at the bit to come back online, and thanks for your patience. Someone's professing to be an IP expert. If STAGENET is hiding all the technical details from the user, how do I get access to those details?
Well, as everyone has been saying up until this point, the purpose of STAGENET is to make things simple. And raw IP video networking is extraordinarily complicated. And it's been an inhibiting step to people using it in small and temporary installations up until now. So something like STAGENET allows people to look to use IP networking in smaller, quicker setups in general. And in order to do that, that means you have to take a lot of the technicality out of it, a lot of the details out of it. So as a first pass, StageNet will set up an environment which is a best first attempt to make it work properly. If you need to go in and do something very specific in the network, all of those parameters are still available to you under StageNet. So there's no reason an IT network expert couldn't go in and do their own work at whatever level they want to do it there. But it means they don't have to do all the basic stuff to begin with. So all of the in-depth parameters are there to be accessed, but they're hidden on the first pass. And it's up to a user to go and find them rather than it be required for the basic setup to begin with.
That's good. So it's hidden, but you can fiddle with it if you want. I don't know why you want to, but some people may.
That's right.
Thanks for that, Donald. Stefan, I'd like to ask you a question that's coming from an audience member. StageNet claims to use standards, yet there must be quite a lot of proprietary integration work going on the devices you support. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, happy to. So one of my favorite topics. Happy to ask Albert to express his thoughts about this as well, because we have lots of discussions about this as well. So yeah, I mean, we first of all, we like standards. We love them. We embrace them. We're getting engaged in the standards. So by all means, whatever we do here, we don't want to build up a proprietary ecosystem or something like that. If we are doing, and we are writing specific driver software for these products of the vendors here on this panel, then it's only because we have to, in order to get the user experience we need. And so that is actually the key to it. A lot of people say, well, IP, well, you have to get to know all of this, you have to learn about it. Yes, you have to learn some things, maybe because over time things shift from analog to digital and now to IP, but besides the normal ground knowledge, you should know more, really. That shouldn't be necessary. And so in order not to be an expert system, we need to talk to those products and we need to know about them. We need to know about their status. We need to know whether they are locked to PTP. We need to know whether they are losing packets right now. And all this kind of stuff is new stuff, which is not standard. And there's no standard telling us how to ask all the devices, for instance, for packet loss. There is no standard to ask all the devices, are you locked to the same grandmaster, PTP? And this is essential information. And so while we wait for standards doing all this, we have no other choice than doing drivers, specific software for every device, which allows us to do that. So because we think the user has a right to get this experience, and it's possible technically. And by all means, the best which could happen to us is if we could lead the way to the standards, what topics need to be standardized in order to come to a user-friendly system. So we have been joining discussions of those panel standards committees, and told them what we think we need. And so that's kind of how we look at this. And so proprietary extensions, yes, but because we need to, not because we want to.
Thanks,
Albert.
Stefan. Can we bring Albert in there? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, this comes to, the comment, what's missing in standards? Well, there's a lot missing, but it's how do you define what you're trying to do? So you have to start somewhere, and the industry has started with, the content. What are the different types of content? And then we have different types of bandwidth. So now we have different standards for different bandwidths and different needs and different workflows. And it is, so far been about exchanging the content. There are, standards being worked on with things like NMOS, which is, trying to have boxes and devices, advertise themselves in the network. Hey, I'm this, I'm a camera. But then how do you set that camera up? How do you, make sure it's ready to be used by, this production system or this modem, those settings, and so, it's this pyramid of things, and we're halfway down a pyramid that has been defined by different working groups, but we're missing, these pieces so that a person can actually sit down. And at the same time, as Stefan alluded to, there's information that I need to know, somehow needs to be percolated up to a user that something may not be right, or more importantly, everything's good. Don't worry, everything's good, everything's working in this network. Or if there's a problem, here's specifically where the problem is. You don't have to go, is it a network issue? Is it where's my problem? That information exists. How do we present it? How do we get that to people? So, having a system, like STAGENET that can identify, hey, this device is no longer sending bits out of it or no longer sending audio out of it. Please go look at it. These kind of things are what's needed.
Can I just stay with you a second more longer, Albert? Our AVB time-sensitive networking already does this, of course. How is STAGENET different from that? Well, AVB is a protocol, again, about that connection between devices. It doesn't, it's not about, presenting a user interface to someone saying, hey, your mic's ready, take your mic to this mixing, console, whatever it is. It was a protocol created to, protect bandwidths when bandwidth was more of a concern. We had smaller, it was created, back when, 100 megabit and was a standard. We're a little past that now. But, again, it was just one little part of the solution. And now, with an EA67 environment that's a little more open, we can flow content across many devices with that kind of thing under the control on a normal network. It's maybe not as needed as it once was. Many thanks, Albert. I've got a live question that's just come in. Again, I'll throw this open to the whole panel, whoever feels most confident to ask it. And please keep the questions coming in. We've still got quite a bit of time left so that we can accommodate more. How does the synchronization between video and audio that come from different sources work? And can the necessary delay be applied or managed from STAGENET, or does it have to be done at the source or the receiver? So quite an interesting one, that. Who feels most qualified to ask that question?
I think that, yeah, I like that question. Thank you. Because we do a lot of IP training courses and we have to explain people about this. Yeah, as a user, you have to set the delay on the receiver so everything is in sync and it has to be the same delay on all your connections. So yes, that's exactly what STAGENET does. You will, once you take the system into operation, we just apply a meaningful link offset to all the sources and actually to all the destinations. So because that's actually set in the receivers. So we do that for you, and we just choose a default value, and that's it. And we make sure everything's lip sync and everything's in sync. That's what we do out of the box. If you want to change that latency because you think that's not what you want, you're welcome to go to the expert settings and change that. But we will not just ask you to do stuff and to set it up and whatever, because honestly, I think as a user, I don't want to be concerned about setting link offsets, latencies, whatever in my devices. I don't even know what it is. I just want it to work. So this is exactly what STAGENET takes care of, amongst other things.
No, that's great. Thanks for elucidating that, Stefan. That's great. We've got another live question that's just come in. Quite applicable for the last 2.5 years, really, given where we all are now. Can STAGENET apply in remote production? And if so, how? Anyone feel qualified for that?
Yeah, I mean, I can elaborate on that as well. Obviously, we need control over the infrastructure. Otherwise, we cannot give guarantees. So if that remote production is like the whole path from A to B is under control of STAGENET, we could say yes, but in reality, that's not often the case. So often you have providers in between, they run their own infrastructure. and stuff like this. So then it's actually it's kind of a bit out of focus for us right now. Now, having said that, maybe in the future we take care of that as well, because obviously the topic is interesting and that's no question. But StageNet, to start with, starts with local production environments, you know, or actually production environments maybe between campuses, but then, like say, with dark fiber connections where there's no third-party people in between, because we need to control every single component of the setup. So there is a limit right now, and we see where the roadmap brings us.
The audience is very much on it today. We're getting a lot of questions coming in. Keep them coming. Another live question that's just come in. How will StageNet and control products deal with firewalls and security? It's a big topic. Do I have to make sure there is no security inside my IP island? And are such issues displayed somewhere? Stefan, I'm afraid that's probably into your little niche. Could you elaborate?
Sure. Happy to do so. I mean, obviously, just, you know, connecting to what I just said, we have everything under control. That means we don't right now look at StageNet as a, let's say, intelligent, scalable cross-point matrix. We have the hardware under control and we do what needs to be done. So there is no third-party firewall sitting in between our system. Otherwise, you know, it's not what we ship and what we declare as a StageNet ecosystem. So to start with, obviously, if you want to have access, remote web access and stuff like that, that's a different story, right? If you have how to access the Wi-Fi or something, but that's a standard IT functionality. But within the audio and video real-time island, let's say, there will be no firewalls, because simply we don't ship firewalls. We don't do firewalls in there. Having said that, why would you have firewalls? Obviously, you're concerned about security. And we do have security features in place. I wouldn't call them firewalls, but that's exactly one of the reasons why we are actually talking to the switch as well. We actually set the switch up. StageNet talks to the currently Arista switches, and we do changes in the setup of the switch. Now, besides optimizing the setup for PTP and whatever multicast stuff, what we do is actually we tell the system which interface is allowed to access our network and which isn't. That's actually fully part of our internal functionality. We call it quarantine. So when you plug in a device which is not known to the system or new, it will be put in quarantine, in other words, in a different VLAN for experts amongst us, and then it cannot connect, it cannot access any of our resources and the network as such. And then actually we say approve, and then we reconfigure the switches to actually go into a different VLAN. Yes, we do give another IP address to that device, and. So we go, that's what I meant. You only see the tip of the iceberg. So that's why we need to have access to the switch. We don't want the user to get into that complexity.
Thanks, Stefan. I don't think we like the word quarantine anymore, but hey, it's applicable in this sense, we understand.
And everyone knows what you mean when you say that. So
yes, our ears definitely prick up. NDI, we're all going to IBC soon, and looking forward to seeing everyone there. NDI is a huge deal now amongst the broadcast community. Can StageNet support NDI? If yes, how can I interconnect it with SMPTE 2110 IPMX equipment? Any plans to support Dante? How would it interact with AES67, SMPTE 2110? Oh, quite a few questions there. Go on, please enlighten me.
Standards again, standards. So, you know, actually, we don't get involved in those standards or, let's say, technologies. We just want to control them and make it accessible to the user. What I mean is, we have absolutely no problems to actually, we plan on our roadmap to do NDI control. It's just the fact that when I hit an NDI source, all the 2110 IPMX destinations will be grayed out on my GUI because I cannot just directly connect to it. So that would be a limit we are just exposing to start with. And the same actually on the Dante stuff. You know, if you have a Dante device, we first of all, we will try to configure it into the AES67 mode so it gets interoperable with other devices. Now, there are some limits to Dante in the AES67 mode, and if once we address that in the development cycle, if we see that we can't get it to work in our use cases, then we probably just use hardware gateways which are receiving Dante and then putting out AES67. And that's exactly what we plan to do with NDI and 2110 as well. So that's a vision, by the way, just to make sure it's not like shipping in release 1.0, but our idea is you have sources, you have destinations, and you want them to be interconnectable as much as possible. If they are not technically, STAGENET in the background should insert a converter box. So we actually envisage to support converters, and if necessary, because for technical reasons the connection cannot be made, we would envisage to insert that converter box automatically in the background. Again, starting to warn the user if he's running out of them, because there won't be unlimited converter boxes in his setup. So that kind of resource management, as it's called, is also absolutely on our roadmap. The user shouldn't care what's happening behind the hood or under the hood. He just wants to connect sources and destinations.
Thanks, Stefan. I think a lot of folks out there are concerned about the standards. There's a lot out there, and I feel it's just another standard. It's not, it's quite different. And thanks for explaining that. I hope what we're doing this afternoon, is helping to change people's perception of STAGENET. I'm going to give your voice a break, you'll be pleased to know, Stefan. I think your larynx is starting to dry. So I'm going to bring in Donald. Hello again, Donald. How does STAGENET initiative decide on which devices get support?
Well, as Stefan indicated a little bit earlier, there's two principal reasons that new devices will be supported inside STAGENET. One is that there's a strategic technical reason to do that. Edge devices to allow inputs and outputs and add other features that are required into STAGENET. On top of that, the next thing is business case. If there's an opportunity that requires a particular type of product to be integrated, obviously there's an interest in doing that. So the two main things are functional and business case.
Thanks, Donald. Back to Switzerland, but to a different location now. Maurice, are you there, Maurice?
Oui, monsieur, I'm here.
Thank you. I've got a question for you from one of the audience members. STAGENET not only controls the infrastructure, but also has monitoring built in. They want to know what you're actually monitoring.
Well, it was already a bit addressed by Albert and Stefan and others, but to make it clear and to look at it from really a non-technical user perspective. If you look a little bit in the past, we and let's not take a broadcast example. Let's look at a concert hall or something like that. We always could see a signal going from one device to another because there were levels, there were things, lights blipping and whatever, and that was creating some trust and confidence in our infrastructure, and we knew it was working, even though as a person, perhaps I didn't know exactly what was happening, but it was working because those lights were blipping on and so on. Obviously, now in the IP world, it is we have to create the same trust and confidence in the installation and the infrastructure, but of course with another approach, because you can't see anymore those lights and those things like in the olden days. So with the GUI, with the interface that you have with STAGENET, you will always see, first of all, the devices, the status of the devices, if they're healthy, if they're unhealthy. And then one crucial element, of course, in the network infrastructure, in the audio video network IP infrastructure, is the PTP. Who is the grandmaster clock giving this PTP to everyone? Who is eventually the second grandmaster clock giving the PTP to everyone? Is it healthy? And if it is unhealthy, there is a sign, there is something with a color how can I say, a color code saying this connection, for example, is unhealthy because the device is off or because whatever, then there you enter into methodology how to solve it. But we use all the telemetry of those different devices to go back into the GUI of STAGENET to have a very straightforward, very easy to understand feedback of the monitoring of the device and the network status that provides trust and confidence in what's happening. And this is crucial in my opinion.
Thanks, Maurice. Just to remind our audience, we're coming to the close of our webinar shortly, but we've still got time for another one or two questions. But staying with you, Maurice, if I may, while I've got you online, who is a target user of STAGENET?
Well, first of all, I take the example as a concert hall, for example, recording. I mean, what they do is recording multi-track audio, often having broadcasters coming in with their trucks, with all of that. So nothing much is happening. And within time, more and more they're required to be heard before streaming and other things, become a producer themselves about content. And obviously they would also like to have cameras, but they have no knowledge. I mean, they don't have the team, the engineers to build up a network infrastructure over IP for audio and video. So there, typically, STAGENET is a fantastic opportunity because, as we could clearly understand during this webinar, it relays on a very complex, different products, first of all, but interconnectivity and interoperability between different standards. But the user doesn't need to understand, first of all, this, and doesn't even need to put his finger in there. So the thing is, there's just connecting audio streams to other audio sources, to destination, and the same for the video. So if those concert halls suddenly wants to apply some cameras, for example, to shoot it in multicam, there it would be a fantastic solution to be able to interconnect them without going into the layers of engineering all of that to the IP side. So non-technical users are basically our the people we target STAGENET for, and it can be in various different applications in the concert halls. It can be also in conference environments, but of course also in the broadcast environment. So there are many different places where it can be used easily.
Thank you for that. It's a huge audience potentially because this STAGENET technology is aimed at specifically at the end user, and obviously there's a lot of end users out there. The curfew bell has sounded by the sound of things. I don't know if we've got any time for any more questions, but it would appear not. Thank you to the panel today, Rehman, Donald, Albert, Maurice, Stefan. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and collective knowledge on STAGENET, which hopefully helped to demystify a lot about this exciting new technology to our audience today. Thank you to all our audience members who have taken the time to tune in as well. As participants, we truly appreciate your valued input and hope that further dialogue and engagement will lead to you becoming part of this fledgling STAGENET community. After all, better communications and engagement amongst members and stakeholders will undoubtedly lead to a better end user solution. The STAGENET community of users and manufacturers invites new converts to join the discussion like we have today and to actively participate. Like me, I'm sure that you will want to follow this up with more detailed analysis. Today's panelists will be present on their various booths at the upcoming IBC in Amsterdam from the 9th to the 12th September. So if you head into the exhibition, please say hello. And finally, STAGETEC will be hosting a STAGENET demonstration exhibit in Hall 8 on booth C92. You will get an email within the next day or two with all the links and information from today's webinar, so please hold fast on that. We will send you as much information as possible. But once again, thanks to your time today. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you.